Today we are doing lesson 1 of our unit on percents. Hopefully this is a review from last year. It says I can convert between fractions, decimals, and percents. We are simply going in a circle because this is a cyclical pattern. So it says how do we move from a fraction to a decimal to a percent? So it says use 24% as an example. So if we are told we got 24% correct on our spelling test, that means we got 24% out of a total of, as a fraction, 100%. So if we're going to write 24% out of 100%, that is written as a fraction. Part out of the total. Now we could simplify 24 over 100. We could divide to make this smaller. Simply if you divide by 2, we get 12 over 50. We could divide by 2 again. We could have divided by a different number right away to make this a little bit easier. We get 6 over 25. And that's as far as we can go because we can't divide 6 and 25 by anything other than 1. So if you put that here instead, that would be a better fraction. And then last, as a decimal, well, to convert this fraction to a decimal, simply plug it in your calculator and divide. 24 divided by 100 will give us 0.24. So all we did to get from one fraction, or one number, to the next, from a percent to a fraction, we divided by 100. To get from a fraction to a decimal, we plugged it in our calculator and divided. If we wanted to go back from a decimal to a percent, we would need to multiply by 100 to move the decimal 2 spots to get back to 24%. So let's try a couple. We have percents for both of these. Notice this one's less than 100 and this one's more than 100. That's okay, doesn't matter. You could get extra credit on something, right? 45%, if we divide by 100, write that as a fraction. That's 45 out of 100. And all these boxes are small, I apologize. We could simplify that. If we divide by 5, we would have 9 out of 20 if you simplify. But from a fraction to a decimal, 45 over 100 is 45 hundredths, or 0.45. Second one, 120% is still 120% out of 100%. If you want to simplify that, we could divide by 10 and make it 12 out of 10. And we could divide by 2 again to give us 6 over 5. That would be the best fraction. When we divide 120 divided by 100, 100 goes into 120 one time, and you would have 0.2 left over, or 20 out of 100 left over, which is 0.2. If you want to put the 0 on there so you can see, it really just moved the decimal 2 spots dividing by 100. You can. Next, we don't have the little triangle helper deal set up there. You need to write the decimal or fraction as a percent. So 1 out of 20, 1 over 20, if we convert that to a decimal, we could plug it in our calculator. Or you could make it so it has a denominator of 100. 1 divided by 20 is 0.05. But that's just our decimal. We need it as a percent. So multiply by 100 and we should get 5%. Does that make sense? If you get 1 out of 20 right on your test, that's 5% of your test. Okay? Remember, from a decimal to a percent, we're just multiplying by 100 to move our decimal 2 spots. This next one's already written as a decimal. So from a decimal to a percent, we just need to multiply by 100. So it really moves our decimal 2 spots, which would give us 90%. And then our last one here, 3/8. This is one of our fractions that we are going to memorize pretty soon. This is, if we plug in our calculator, 0.375. And if we multiply by 100, it really just moves our decimal 2 spots. So our percent, that is 37 1.5 or 0.5%. 2 word problems on the back. First one has to do with the circle graph. It says the circle graph shows, or below, shows the results of a survey of how 500 students prefer to spend their time. So each of these is a number of students, not a percent. We need to find the percent. What percent of students prefer to spend time with friends? So we only need to look at this section. So 40 students prefer to spend time with friends out of a total of, we're really just writing a fraction, out of a total of, how many students? 500. So we can simplify this. You could plug it in your calculator to get to a decimal, or we could just divide by 10, and we get 4 out of 50. If we divide by 2 again, we get 2 out of 25, and we can't simplify anymore. So that would be the best fraction. You could put this technically as well. If we plug that in our calculator, 40 divided by 500, or 2 divided by 25, we get 0.08. And then going to a percent, we'll have to multiply by 100. That will give us 8%, not 80. We move the decimal 2 spots, we're at 8%. So 8% of the people prefer to spend time with friends. Last one, it says you go to Foot Locker to buy a new pair of shoes. They have a sale going on where you get $10 off your total price. You spend $75. What is the discount you got as a percentage? So we're trying to get to the percent. We have 2 numbers. We do have the part that we get off out of the total amount. So the part off that we get is $10 off out of a total of $75. So we want to figure out what is that as a percent. What percent are we actually getting off? But we know it's $10. We could simplify and divide by 5. And that would give us 10 divided by 5 is 2. 75 divided by 5 is 15. And we can't divide by 2. That's as small as our fraction will go. 2/15. If we plug that in our calculator, 2 divided by 15, we get 0.1333, and 3's repeat. So you could put 1.3 repeating. And then multiply by 100 to get back to our percent. So we really have 13.3%, or 0.3 repeating percent. All right. So it makes sense that this $10 that you'd get off is really, you're getting 13% off, or 13.3% off the price. We're going to talk more about discounts, taxes, and tips a little bit later. So here is your homework. It is worksheet 1, very similar to